probably more so than most folks in town, because we were here all day, every day. And at that time, my office was on the corner of the building, so I had an open view the entire time that the trials were going on for sure.
Were you ever interviewed?
I was not. No, I thank goodness. I did.
Stay away.
I was simply just a bystander.
Well, so you had a good view of the protesters.
Did?
The Klan and the Black Panthers. What were your feelings when that happened?
Scary. You know, I didn't want anything, because most of the folks that came in were not our people. They were folks from outside, and felt a need, I'm sure, to do what they did. But you know, something I haven't mentioned, but my educational background is in criminal justice. I started out in criminal justice and was a Texas Highway Patrol for a long time, so I was pretty intimate with the security aspect of what was going on around the square. And when the troopers were brought in, and the Texas Rangers and the riot squad and folks that were involved in that, I had a personal investment because I knew all of them. Sure didn't want any of them hurt or injured over something, because it wasn't their community. They were here though to protect everybody. They didn't have a tie to the community per se, but I had a lot of fear, because one wrong move or one wrong word said, I think could have erupted something negative, and I didn't want that to happen.
Okay. And where was your degree? Did you go to Sam Houston?
I actually went through Angelina College, and then went right into the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Okay.
And
so what made you switch to the banking industry?
A phone call. My dad died in 1985, and he and I were very close. And I was coaching. I had two daughters, as I've already mentioned, but I was coaching Little League baseball, because I never had any sons, and coaching was a passion of mine. So the president of the bank's son was on my baseball team, and he just made a comment one day asking if I thought I'd be interested in changing professions, and I said, well, I hadn't even thought about it, but you know, the 8 to 5 off on weekends and not working rainy nights and cold nights, and was pretty attractive, literally banker's hours, and I said, hey, I'll visit with you about it. Well, he called my supervisor in Austin and talked to him about it, and then my supervisor in Austin called me and said, hey, are you interested in changing professions? And I said, no, you know how much I love this. And he said, well, such and such wants to visit with you. And I said, okay, at least I'll visit. And one thing led to another. Here we are. So I really loved, and still do, I have a lot of respect for law enforcement, and that's my passion. But you know, dealing with people, I get to deal with them here in just a little different setting, but still people.
And so you're pretty good with numbers as well?
I try to meet their needs and do what I can to help them in a different environment. Because law enforcement really is an opportunity to help people. Sometimes it takes on a different connotation, but you know, you're dealing with people and trying to do what's best for them and protect them, and that's what I do in banking. So.
That's good. Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
I was just going to ask Mr. Hopkins, as you've sat on boards in the past, especially the Economic Development Board, have you seen any potential as any areas in Jasper that would be useful for a company to come in and help bring in some economic development through there? Maybe a manufacturing company or industrial company?
Absolutely, Try. As you know, you can remember, you were very young, but when Jasper was a lot more active in that area, and to see those businesses downsize and evacuate our community was devastating to our tax roll, and the property values have even decreased because of their vacating our area. Yes, we are actively recruiting businesses to come here, and it's just tough times because you're competing with areas that possibly can offer more resources, and it's tough in a community like ours to recruit a major manufacturing facility. And as the school board, we have even enacted some incentives that we can offer folks to attract manufacturing and businesses like that. Not a tax abatements, but there are ways that we can offer them some relief on some of their taxing burden, and we've tried that, we've done that, we are participating in it currently, but
Right.
boy, economic development is tough.
Right, and I spoke with Robert Hall a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and he mentioned that right after the incident took place, after he sold Visitor, he tried to work or talk things out with the company he sold Visitor to try to buy it back, and things unfortunately didn't work out. But he noticed that the 400 jobs that were lost there, and then quite a few at LP.
Right.
Really, he didn't realize the effect that was going to have economically.
It was a trickle-down effect, and we're still feeling the ripples from it, I guess you might say. We're still actually able to see the ripples. I'll have to admit, and since this is the gist of our conversation, I think the incident had a negative impact on our community from a perception standpoint. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the world looked at Jasper as just a racial nightmare, when indeed it really wasn't.
Right.
We had 3 individuals that acted so outside of the way that Jasper actually was, and it did have a negative impact. Every time I would go to a conference, a meeting, or anything that I would have to introduce myself and tell them where I was from, it was almost like a gasp in the crowd when you had to tell that. And I'll be honest with you, there were times I told folks I was from Newton and not Jasper. You know, or Waco.
People,
you know?
Island, or San Braver didn't know where Jasper was.
And it got to be where I would just go ahead and preface my introduction with, most of you know where I'm from. It's not that bad. We're real people. We went through a horrible situation.
Right.
And we're going to be better because of it.
That's right.
I want to believe that. That's just the way I was raised.
That's right.
So, well, is it still that way, or has the perception improved in the last few years?
The interview comes at a bad time in Jasper. It had improved tremendously. And this is totally my opinion, and I want to preface my comments by saying that it's my opinion. It's not based on any data or anything that I can tangibly put my hands on. But what's going on with our city council right now, I think may be more detrimental to Jasper than James Byrd. I really want to believe that the perception of our city government right now is much worse than it was after James Byrd.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just visited with a very close black pastor friend of mine for a long time, and he and I both are trying to really put our arms around the motives, the agenda, and what is really going on. Try as it's disappointing to me to see our folks in such an uproar, and basically tearing down many of the hurdles that we had once crossed and jumped and put back in the warehouse. They brought them back out, and it's just, I went to the city council meeting last Tuesday night, and I left there sickened by what I witnessed and sad. I wasn't mad. I was disappointed and really, really absolutely sad because of what I experienced and the outburst and the attitude and just the lack of cooperation or any hope of reconciliation that we once may have enjoyed and experienced. I think has gone down the road, and I hate that. I think it can be fixed, but I'm not sure what avenues we're going to have to take to get us there. I made a comment to the pastor friend I was talking to. You know, it's almost like you wish we could have a mediator come in. Now, we all know there's a great mediator, but apparently there's a lot of folks not calling on his services. But in the school business, the TEA provides what they call monitors. If we had a school board that was in disarray and having the lack of ability to communicate and run a meeting in a way that it should be run, they actually we could ask for a monitor. They would send one, and that person, he or she, would sit in every meeting we have, listen to every piece of dialogue we discuss. If there is friction, try to resolve that. And I think maybe as a city, we may be getting close to that. I don't know how in the world you facilitate that. But it's almost like the town hall meetings that we saw after James Byrd, you know, when Mr. Koppel came from ABC News.
Right.
You know, folks had an opportunity to voice their opinions, but I think it was healthy. I think there was some growth that came out of that.
It was.
And I'm thinking that we're getting real close to having to do that. It doesn't have anything to do with James Byrd. This incident has nothing. What's going on right now has nothing to do with James Byrd. But unfortunately, it is a racial issue.
Right.
And I'm not that way. I've never, ever participated in anything that was racially motivated because of where I was raised.
How were you raised?
By a black lady that I thought was my grandmother. And my dad coached and taught, and never saw him, hardly ever, for the majority of my growing up days. My mother was a nurse, and so she worked odd hours. And I honestly thought this lady was my grandmother until I knew better. And then I saw my dad in the late 60s go through an incident where he nominated a black kid for all district. And I thought we were going to get run out of town. You know, I participated in athletics all my life, and some of my best friends are black. I was never, ever allowed, never desired, nor allowed to use the N-word growing up. It's something that I've never, ever desired to hear. I get sick when I hear the word. I guess I'm the whitest black person there is when it comes to feelings and compassion, and I think Traz will attest to that.
And I'll tell you what, you know, my dad and his family grew up playing ball with Eddie and them. You know, they grew up 20 miles from Jasper. My great uncles coached against Eddie's father, him and Newton, and growing up, Eddie would pick me up and take me to church. The Sunday school, excuse me. It's that for years, and so it's really.
So he's telling the truth.
It's truth, you know. It's just.
And it really saddens me to see that folks